At my grandfather's will reading, my sister laughed before the attorney finished the sentence. To my granddaughter, Naomi Carter, Mr. Halpern said, reading from the will, I leave the brown bakery ledger kept in the office safe. Denise covered her mouth, but not fast enough. The ledger, she said. After 14 years in that bakery, that's what you got. My cousin Shane leaned back in his leather chair and grinned. Maybe Grandpa finally decided to tip the help. Aunt Carol pressed her lips together, pretending to be shocked, but the smile stayed in her eyes. I sat at the end of the conference table with my hands folded in my lap. The brown ledger was already in front of me. It looked plain beside the thick estate folders and polished pens. The corners were softened from years of use. A faint line of flour still sat in the crease near the spine. It did not look like revenge. It looked like a book nobody respected. Denise had just been left the lake cabin in Indiana. Shane had received 2 investment accounts, though one was smaller than he expected. Aunt Carol had been left the house on Birch Lane and my grandfather's antique dining set. My brother Malcolm had received the Buick, the coin collection, and $10,000. And I had received an old bakery ledger. Shane looked at me again. You want me to carry it to your car, Naomi? It might be heavy with all those donut totals. Denise laughed harder that time. I kept my face still. 3 weeks before my grandfather died, he had sat in his hospital bed with oxygen under his nose, pointed one thin finger at me and said, "If they laugh, let them finish." So I let them finish. Mr. Halpern looked over his glasses. He had been my grandfather's attorney for nearly 20 years, and he did not look confused by the laughter. He looked like a man waiting for a trapdoor to open under the right feet. There is an additional instruction attached to the ledger, he said. The laughter thinned. I placed my palm on the cover. I knew that ledger. I had seen it on the bakery desk for 14 years. I had carried it to the bank, to supplier meetings, to tax appointments, and once to the emergency room when Grandpa refused to leave it behind during a chest pain scare. I had not known, until that moment, that it had been carrying me too. 14 years earlier, I came back to Dayton with one suitcase, a broken marriage, and $42 in my checking account. I was 35 and embarrassed in a way I did not know how to describe. People kept telling me I was starting over, but it did not feel like a fresh beginning. It felt like walking backward into a hometown where everyone remembered the woman I had tried to become and could see exactly how far I had fallen. My husband, Richard, had emptied what was left of our joint account, signed a lease in another state, and left me with a voicemail that said he needed space to be honest with himself. I learned later that honesty had a name, a condo, and a job at his new company. My parents were gone by then. My mother had died when I was 29. My father followed 4 years later after a second stroke. My grandfather, Walter Carter, was the only person in the family who did not look at me like divorce had made me contagious. When I knocked on his back door with my suitcase, he opened it wearing a white undershirt and a bakery apron dusted with flour. He looked at me for 3 seconds. "You hungry?" he asked. I nodded. "Then come in." That was his whole counseling style. 2 days later, he asked if I wanted work at Carter's bakery. "Just temporary," I said. He poured coffee into a chipped mug and gave it to me. Most things people call temporary are just things they're ashamed to need. I started the next morning at 4:30. Carter's bakery sat on Salem Avenue between a barber shop and a closed-down insurance office. The front window had gold lettering from the 80s and a bell over the door that sounded tired but loyal. At dawn, the place smelled like yeast, sugar, coffee, and hot metal. By noon, it smelled like vanilla icing and people's good intentions. At first, I worked the front counter. I packed rolls, wrote cake orders, answered phones, and learned that some customers could be kind for years and still become difficult over the price of buttercream. Then I started fixing little things. The inventory sheet was wrong, so I rebuilt it. The supplier schedule was a mess, so I reorganized it. Holiday orders were written on sticky notes, so I made forms. The payroll file was half paper, half memory, so I put it into a system. The bakery had a cash leak nobody wanted to name, so I started reconciling drawers every night. Grandpa baked like a genius and managed like a man from a world where people's words still meant something. That world had ended before he noticed. Carter's bakery had been bleeding quietly for years, not enough to collapse in a single dramatic week, just enough to keep him tired, short on taxes, late with repairs, and vulnerable to every relative who said, "I'll pay you Friday." My family loved the bakery when they needed free food. They were embarrassed by it when they wanted to feel important. Denise, my younger sister, sold real estate part-time and confidence full-time. She wore cream coats, posted motivational quotes, and called me practical in a tone that meant ordinary. She liked telling people I had come home to help Grandpa, which sounded sweet unless you heard the pity underneath. Shane, Aunt Carol's son, floated between sales jobs and business ideas. He had the kind of grin that made older women forgive him and the kind of timing that made him appear when cash was being counted. He called Grandpa, the old man, when he wanted to seem close, and Walter when he wanted to seem like an adult. Aunt Carol treated the bakery like a family treasure when she wanted a discount and like a shabby little shop when she wanted to feel superior. She never paid full price for anything. She said it was because family supports family, but support always seemed to travel in one direction. Malcolm, my older brother, lived in Columbus with his wife and kids. He was not cruel. He was worse sometimes. He was absent and reasonable about it. I stayed. At first, because I needed a paycheck. Then because Grandpa needed help. Then because the bakery needed someone willing to love it enough to count what everyone else ignored. I learned the rhythms of the place. School bus drivers came at 6:15 for apple fritters. Nurses came after night shifts and wanted coffee strong enough to forgive the world. A retired couple bought raisin bread every Thursday and argued gently over which grandchild was more spoiled. Funeral homes ordered trays when families forgot grief makes people hungry. By year 3, I had built catering accounts with 2 churches, a hospital cafe, and a community college. By year 5, we were profitable for the first time in nearly a decade. By year 7, customers thought Carter's bakery had found new energy. They said it like the building had done it itself. Grandpa knew better. He noticed everything, not in speeches, in paper. He kept the brown ledger on the office desk. Every day, he wrote in it with a blue pen. Sales, costs, deposits, repairs, orders, family withdrawals, bad checks, supplier changes, and notes in the margins that only made sense if you knew him. When Shane took $80 from the register and promised to return it Monday, Grandpa wrote, "Shane, $80 cash. Said Monday, we'll see." When Denise ordered 6 dozen mini scones for an open house and said she would bring a check, he wrote, "Denise listing event. No payment yet. Smile expensive." When Aunt Carol had the bakery send pastries to her charity luncheon and told the volunteer to put it on family, he wrote, "Carol assumed free. Again." I laughed the first few times I saw those notes. Then I stopped laughing. One Friday in year 6, a freezer failed and we lost almost $3,000 in product. The repair wiped out cash we had set aside for payroll. Grandpa sat in the office with his cap in his hands and said, "I can pay you half this month." I told him to pay the others first. "Naomi," he said, "I'm serious, I can wait." He opened the ledger to a clean page and wrote at the top, "Deferred wages, Naomi Carter." "Grandpa, don't do that." He held out the pen. "Sign." I said I can wait. And I said sign. I signed because arguing with Walter Carter after he had chosen a line of ink was like arguing with a brick wall about weather. After that, whenever cash got tight and I took less than I earned, he wrote it down. He made me sign each entry. Sometimes I thought it was unnecessary. Sometimes it embarrassed me. Sometimes I resented needing the record at all. But Grandpa said, work that doesn't get counted becomes a gift people think they deserve. That was one of those sentences he dropped into the room and left there for years. The family did not know about the deferred wages. They did not know about the personal card I used when the refrigeration repair had to be paid before a holiday weekend. They did not know I covered payroll once when a catering client paid late. They did not know I spent nights building ordering systems and mornings rolling dough when the baker called in sick. They knew I was there. That was all. At Thanksgiving one year, Denise sat across Aunt Carol's dining table. "Naomi, are you ever going to get a real career again?" I was passing the sweet potatoes. Grandpa stopped chewing. I said, "What part of running a business is imaginary?" Denise smiled. "Don't be sensitive. I just mean you used to talk about doing more." Shane said, "The bakery is more. It has sprinkles." People laughed. I placed the sweet potatoes down before my hands could tighten around the dish. Grandpa did not defend me at the table. That hurt at the time. Later that night, after we returned to the bakery to prep holiday orders, I found him in the office writing in the ledger. "You recording Thanksgiving now?" I asked. He did not smile. "I'm recording who sees what." I should have understood then. But when you have spent your life being useful, it takes time to recognize someone is documenting your value. The bakery kept improving. We updated the website. We added online holiday pre-orders. We raised prices enough to survive without scaring away the regulars. We repaired the ovens, replaced the front sign, and hired a young decorator named Rochelle who could pipe roses so perfect people photographed them before eating. The family praised the growth in the vague way people praise weather. Business seems better. Grandpa got lucky. The neighborhood came back. No one said, "Naomi built the systems that kept the doors open." Grandpa said it once. It was late after Christmas Eve pickup. We were both exhausted. Flour dust sat on his eyebrows. My feet hurt so badly I could feel my pulse in them. He looked around the bakery, at the empty racks and clean counters, and said, "You did what I couldn't." I said, "We did it." He shook his head. "Don't make humility another way to disappear." I looked away because I did not know what to do with being seen that directly. Near the end, he got more serious about the ledger. He had a small stroke 2 months before he died, not the one that killed him, the warning one. He recovered enough to come home, but not enough to pretend nothing had changed. I moved into the room over his garage for a while because he was unsteady on stairs and refused assisted living like it was a personal insult. The family visited in ways that looked better than they felt. Denise came twice and took a photo of herself holding Grandpa's hand. The caption said, "Family is everything." She left before dinner both times. Shane came once with coffee, stayed 20 minutes, and asked whether the bakery had cash reserves. Aunt Carol called often, mostly to ask whether Grandpa had made decisions about the house, the cabin, and the business. Malcolm texted, "Let me know what you need," which is the kind of sentence that lets the sender feel available without becoming useful. One evening, Grandpa called me into the bakery office. The sun was going down behind the alley, turning the back wall orange. He opened the safe and pulled out the brown ledger. "Sit," he said. I sat. He placed the ledger between us. "If I'm gone and there's confusion, open the pocket in the back cover in front of Halpern." "What confusion?" He gave me a tired look, the kind family makes when money enters the room. "Grandpa." No soft voice, I know what I'm saying. His hand trembled when he touched the ledger. "People who don't count the work think inheritance is only things. Houses, cabins, accounts. They forget value can be built by staying." I stared at him. "I don't want them laughing at you," he said. My throat tightened. "Then tell them now." He looked toward the bakery floor, where the evening crew had left trays cooling. "If I tell them now, they'll spend my last weeks arguing. If paper tells them later, they can argue with ink." That sounded so exactly like him that I almost smiled. "What's in the pocket?" I asked. "Something paper can do better than family." He would not say more. 3 weeks later, he died. It was fast. A clot. One phone call from the hospital, one drive through a gray morning, one doctor with practiced kindness, and my grandfather was gone before the bakery finished its first batch of rolls. The funeral was crowded. That should have comforted me, and maybe part of it did. Customers came. Former employees came. Delivery drivers, pastors, teachers, firefighters, and old neighbors came. People cried over a man who had remembered their favorite pies and slipped extra cookies to their children. Denise wore a cream coat and told people, "He was the heart of our family." Aunt Carol sobbed loudly enough to be noticed. Shane kept asking whether the bakery would close for a while. I stood beside the casket and accepted condolences from people who said, "He adored you, and you were so good to him, and I don't know what this bakery would have done without you." Not one person in my family said that. After the funeral, the calls began. Carol wanted to know if the Birch Lane house taxes were current. Denise wanted the lake cabin insurance file. Shane asked if Grandpa had any liquid cash in the business. Malcolm asked, quietly, "Did he ever talk to you about what would happen to the bakery?" "No," I said. It was technically true. He had not told me what would happen. He had told me where to look when it did. The will reading was scheduled for the following Thursday. Mr. Halpern's office was downtown, on the second floor of an older brick building above a travel agency. The conference room had a long table, framed watercolor prints, and coffee that tasted like it had lost an argument. I arrived 15 minutes early. The ledger was already on the table. Mr. Halpern gave me a small nod. He asked that it be placed there before we began. I sat in front of it and waited. The others arrived with the energy of people trying not to look greedy while mentally measuring furniture. Denise brought a leather folder. Aunt Carol wore a mauve jacket and enough bracelets to announce every movement. Shane smelled like mint gum and expensive cologne. Malcolm came in last, quiet and unreadable. Mr. Halpern read the will in a steady voice. Cabin to Denise. House and dining set to Carol. Buick, coin collection, and $10,000 to Malcolm. Investment accounts to Shane, and the Walter Carter Baking Scholarship Fund. Then me. To my granddaughter, Naomi Carter, I leave the brown bakery ledger kept in the office safe. That was when Denise laughed. That was when Shane joked about tipping the help. That was when Aunt Carol smiled. I waited until the air had fully absorbed their contempt. Then Mr. Halpern said, "There is an additional instruction attached to the ledger." I opened the back cover. The pocket was stiff with age. Inside was a sealed envelope and 3 folded sheets held together by a paper clip. My name was written on the envelope in Grandpa's blue ink. I handed it to Mr. Halpern. He broke the seal carefully. His eyes moved across the first page, and for one small second his mouth softened. "Would you like me to read this aloud?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He began. "If this letter is being read, then the people in the room have likely decided that a ledger is a poor inheritance. If so, let the ledger explain itself." Denise stopped moving. Mr. Halpern continued. "For 14 years, my granddaughter Naomi Carter has worked in Carter's bakery beyond wages paid and beyond title given. During years of short cash flow, she accepted deferred compensation, covered vendor emergencies, rebuilt operations, and increased the value of the business. These amounts were recorded by me, signed where applicable, and supported by bank records, deposit slips, and tax documents." Shane leaned forward. "What is this?" Mr. Halpern did not answer him. "Those entries are not sentimental notes," he read. "They are business records." My heart was beating hard, but not fast, heavy, like a fist on a door. "Per the attached operating memorandum," Mr. Halpern read, "all deferred wages, documented personal expenditures, and unpaid management compensation due to Naomi Carter shall be treated as capital contributions effective upon my death." Aunt Carol's bracelet stilled. After calculation of such contributions, controlling ownership of Carter's Bakery LLC, including business assets, equipment, and the Salem Avenue building transfers to Naomi Carter. The room went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Impact quiet. Shane said, "That's not possible." Mr. Halpern lifted the clipped pages. "It is a notarized operating memorandum signed 18 months ago." Denise turned to me. "You knew." "I knew there was something in the pocket. You let us sit here and—" "You were laughing," I said. She looked away first. Mr. Halpern went on. "Any claimed family distributions contrary to the ledger are suspended pending audit. Entries on pages 213 through 228 list outstanding loans, unpaid inventory withdrawals, and undocumented advances to family members, including Carol Simmons, Denise Carter, and Shane Miller. These may be treated as debts due to the business or deducted from bequests where legally allowable." Aunt Carol snapped upright. "Excuse me." Shane grabbed the edge of the table. "He wrote down family favors. That's insane." "No," I said. "He wrote down taking." The word sat there. Taking. Simple enough for everyone to understand. Mr. Halpern opened the ledger to the section attached to the memorandum. Grandpa's handwriting filled the pages. Deferred wages, Naomi Carter. Emergency refrigeration repair, covered by Naomi Carter. Payroll gap, covered by Naomi Carter. Management hours unpaid. Then the family entries. Cash advance to Shane, unpaid. Denise open house catering, unpaid. Carol fundraiser pastries, unpaid. Inventory removed without payment. Discounts assumed without approval. Grandpa had attached bank copies, receipts, deposit slips, and notes. There were 14 years of records. Not gossip. Not feelings. Records. Denise's face turned red in patches. Aunt Carol said, "This is a setup. You were in his ear every day." I looked at her calmly. "I was in the bakery every day." She did not like that. Shane pointed at the ledger. "You can't just turn a notebook into ownership." Mr. Halpern looked at him. "The notebook supports signed and notarized documents. It is not acting alone." Malcolm spoke then, quiet as always. "Did Grandpa tell anyone else?" "No," I said. His brow tightened. "Then how are we supposed to trust it?" That one hurt more than the others, because Malcolm had always been the reasonable one. But reason without curiosity can still become betrayal. "You trusted every part of the will until it counted my work," I said. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Mr. Halpern summarized the practical result. The bakery transferred to me. The building would transfer with it. An audit would determine which family withdrawals could legally offset distributions. The scholarship fund remained intact. The cabin, house, and other gifts still passed as stated, subject to any enforceable deductions. Aunt Carol said she would contest it. Mr. Halpern said, "You are entitled to seek counsel," in the tone people use when the law is already tired. Denise stared at the ledger like it had betrayed her personally. "This is humiliating," she said. I looked at her. "No, humiliating is laughing at something before you know what it cost." No one answered. There are moments when truth does not need volume. It only needs a table to land on. The meeting ended in pieces. Shane left first, muttering about lawyers. Aunt Carol followed, already calling someone in the hallway. Denise paused at the door. I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said, "I hope it was worth it." I looked at the ledger. "It was 14 years, I said. "It already was." She left. Malcolm stayed behind. "I didn't know it was like that," he said. "I know. I should have asked." "Yes." He nodded once, accepting the answer like it was heavier than he expected. After everyone left, Mr. Halpern asked me to stay. He explained the transfer steps, filing forms, banking changes, insurance updates, estate schedules, an audit, more signatures than grief should require. Then he slid a copy of Grandpa's letter toward me. "He was proud of you," he said. I looked down at the page. I wish he had said it more. Mr. Halpern's voice softened. Knowing Walter, he probably thought this was saying it. That made me laugh once, and then I cried. Not loudly, not for long. Just enough for the room to become real again. Justice does not end paperwork. The next month was all signatures, bank meetings, tax calls, and uncomfortable conversations. The audit confirmed what I already knew in my bones. Over the years, family withdrawals, unpaid catering, cash advances, and assumed discounts totaled just over $87,000. Some of it was sloppy. Some of it was entitled. Some of it was theft with a family smile. All of it had survived because nobody thought I would ever be the person allowed to count it. Grandpa had counted it for me. Shane's bequest shrank after the audit. He called twice to say Grandpa had misremembered. I told him to speak with his lawyer. Aunt Carol told relatives I had weaponized bookkeeping. The phrase got back to me from a church customer buying cinnamon rolls. I smiled and said, "Good bookkeeping only feels like a weapon when the numbers aren't on your side." By lunch, half of Salem Avenue had heard it. Denise came to the bakery 2 weeks after the transfer. She walked in wearing sunglasses too large for the weather and stood near the cake case like she was visiting a museum of her own bad judgment. "Can we talk?" she asked. I was restocking cookie trays. "You can." She took the sunglasses off. Her eyes were tired. "I didn't understand how much you had done." "No," I said, "you didn't." She flinched. "I thought you stayed because—" She stopped. "Because I had nowhere else to go." Her face told me the answer before her mouth did. "I guess." I nodded. "That was easier for you to believe." She looked around the bakery. The racks, the staff board, the cases, the line of customers waiting near the register. "I'm sorry I laughed," she said. "I waited. And I'm sorry I treated your life like it was smaller because it happened here." That was closer to the truth than I expected from her. "I appreciate that," I said. "Do you forgive me?" "No." Her face dropped. "Not today," I said. "Maybe not soon. An apology is a start. It's not back pay." She almost smiled, then thought better of it. She bought a loaf of sourdough and paid full price. It was not redemption. It was a receipt. The Monday after ownership became official, I unlocked Carter's bakery at 4:12 a.m. and stood in the dark before turning on the lights. The ovens hummed. The floor needed mopping near the prep sink. A delivery invoice sat under the door. Nothing looked different. Everything was. Rochelle arrived first. She saw me in the office with the transfer folder and said, "So it's really yours now?" "Yes." She crossed her arms. "Good. Then can we finally stop giving Carol free pastry trays?" I laughed for the first time in days. "Yes." That morning, I held a staff meeting. I told them the bakery would stay open, wages would be reviewed, family discounts were over, and every order would be invoiced like a real business because that was what we were. Danny, our youngest baker, raised his hand like he was in school. "Does that mean Shane can't come in the back anymore and take coffee?" "It absolutely means that." Mrs. Ibera, who rolled dough and judged everyone with great accuracy, nodded. "Finally." I gave myself a salary that matched my actual work. The first payroll under my ownership made me cry alone in the office, not because of the amount, because my name was no longer a favor the business hoped to repay later. It was a line item, a fact. That fall, I hosted Founders Day at the bakery. Nothing fancy. Free coffee before 10, old photos by the register, Grandpa's molasses cookies from the original recipe, and a donation jar for the scholarship fund. Customers came all morning with stories. "Your grandfather made our wedding cake. He sent bread when my husband died. He let my son sweep floors after school when we needed grocery money." I listened and realized something important. Inheritance is not only what a person leaves you. Sometimes it is what they trusted you to continue. Malcolm came with his children. He paid for everything and asked if he could help carry tables after closing. I let him. We did not become perfect siblings, but he began asking real questions, and I began answering some of them. Denise came near the end of the day. She stood in line like everyone else, bought cookies, and put $20 in the scholarship jar. She did not make a speech. That helped. Aunt Carol did not come. Shane drove past once and kept going. The bakery sign was repainted in November. I kept the name. Carter's Bakery. Underneath, in smaller letters, I added. Since 1978, still counted right. Rochelle looked up at it and said, "That is petty." "Measured," I said. She grinned. "Even better." For months, I kept the brown ledger in my desk drawer. Then one night after closing, I took it upstairs to the small apartment over the bakery and opened it at my kitchen table. I turned through the pages slowly. Sales. Repairs. Deposits. Deferred wages. Family advances. My signature, over and over, younger in the early pages, firmer later. Grandpa's handwriting surrounded mine like a fence. I cried harder that night than I did at the will reading. Not because I missed the money. Because I had spent 14 years thinking my endurance was invisible, and all that time, one stubborn old man had been writing it down. People sometimes ask if I felt guilty taking control of the bakery when the rest of the family expected a share. No. I felt sad that paper had to do what love should have done freely. But I did not feel guilty. The bakery was not handed to me as a prize. It was recognized as mine through work already done. That difference matters. My family laughed at the ledger because they thought value had to shine to count. They forgot that flour settles quietly. So does truth. And when enough of it gathers, it leaves a mark on everything. They thought I inherited an old book. What I inherited was proof that I had never been the help. I was the one holding the business together while they were laughing at the cover. And when I opened it, 14 years of records did what I had been too tired to do. They spoke for me.